My wife, kissing another man, wasn't in the script I read. There I stood, frozen, as my once peaceful life turned into a thriller without my consent. "It's me, Dream," she had said, her eyes sparkling with a secret now unveiled. Each whispered phone call, each late-night return, now painted a clear picture of deception. "Honey, am I cute to you?" I mocked, the truth slicing through the facade. "This is my story. Enjoy watching it?" My name is Maxwell Hart, and I was employed as a warehouse foreman at a port. My life was proceeding smoothly and calmly. I had been married to a lovely woman named Clara Monroe for more than a decade. Our marriage was brimming with joy and peace. Meanwhile, I was excelling in my career while Clara was thriving in advertising. One evening, after a tiring day at work, Clara returned home with an otherworldly grin on her face. She was all excited and enthusiastic. "Honey, I have some fantastic news. You won't believe it," she exclaimed. She began by preparing a celebratory dinner and seating me at the table. "I've been listening to you. You're glowing. Just imagine, I've been offered a role in a movie." She was practically jumping with joy. "What kind of movie?" I inquired. She waved her hand dismissively. "It's some sort of marital drama, but I'm thrilled. I've always dreamt of being in a movie. Can you imagine?" "What are they offering?" I asked. "It's amazing. They showed me part of the script. The pay is good. I have an audition on Thursday." "What? You already accepted?" "Of course, it's my dream. I quit my job today, too. I don't think I'll have time for advertising," she said with a mysterious smile. I was slightly taken aback by this news, not due to the sudden turn of events, but because we had always made important decisions together. And now Clara had made a decision on her own, in addition to leaving her full-time job. I had never been particularly keen on the world of acting, knowing its pitfalls, and the thought of my wife embarking on this path saddened me. Clara was bubbling with excitement. I knew this meant a lot to her, and my feelings were conflicted. Initially, I wanted to oppose her, but then I simply smiled and chose to support her. She rushed to me with gratitude and hugs, and I forgave her for her impulsive decision. The days passed by. I was still in my element, overseeing the shipment operations at my warehouse. Clara excelled in her audition and landed the role of a housewife. After filming, she would often return home and excitedly share her experiences and achievements on set. However, there were times when she didn't come back home. She would attribute it to the distance of the filming location, late-night shoots, or sheer exhaustion. I trusted her completely, as trust was a cornerstone of our family life. One day, a businessman arrived on a large yacht at my port. As the party on the yacht winded down, the young Wendy girls disembarked to feel the stability of the ground beneath their feet. I found myself captivated by the event, momentarily distracted from my duties as a warehouse manager. Some customers approached, inquiring about loading up supplies to continue their revelry. "They seem unfamiliar around here," the storekeeper remarked, nodding towards the guest who had just docked. "Indeed," I replied. "Go attend to them." Delegating the task to the storekeeper, I decided to inspect the neighboring part of the harbor where recent repairs had been completed, ensuring everything was in order. While strolling along the dock, one of the girls from the yacht caught my attention. "You're quite charming. This place is truly beautiful," she slurred, clearly intoxicated and intent on flirting. Politely declining her advances, I noticed her persistent chatter. Amidst her ramblings, one phrase stood out to me. "Did you know I'm an actress? We're here to film a new movie called The Marriage Crash. It's going to be amazing." She continued, "I'm free on Sunday. Why don't you show me around town?" The mention of the movie title piqued my interest. "What is the title of that film?" I feigned interest, knowing that it was the movie my wife had been a part of. Well, she used to be. She seemed slightly embarrassed as she began to explain. "It's a film about a plumber, you see. But then the wife decides to have an affair with a sailor. And in return, the husband has a girlfriend. You understand what I'm saying, right? So there you have it. I play the role of the girlfriend. Only the most beautiful women are chosen for this part." I smiled and continued to question why she didn't want to play the wife with the sailors. After all, there was a woman they had chosen for that role. Her name was Clara or something like that. In short, they needed an older woman for the role. I wasn't interested in what the girl was saying anymore, so I simply stopped listening. My mind wandered to my wife's current job. The news of the character she was portraying unsettled me a bit. It may have been an innocent role, but I knew better, and I was determined to find out more about what my wife was doing on set. Recent events had given me the impression that things were not as smooth as they seemed. That evening, when my wife and I sat down for dinner, I decided to inquire about her role with more curiosity than usual. But she responded as she always did, saying that the plot was mundane and uninteresting. I felt a sense of doubt creeping in. I mean, there was no way that girl was intentionally bad-mouthing Clara. She didn't even know who I was. And now, checking up on my wife's activities on set was my own idea. I made up my mind not to delay it any longer. So after contemplating for a few days, I decided to take a few days off in the near future and secretly visit the filming location. Of course, I didn't mention anything about it to Clara. The place I went to was massive, with various sets, trailers, small buildings, numerous posters, and I even noticed a couple of model boats. It was clear that they were for the movie. I carefully maneuvered between the trailers. It was growing late, and my intention was to go unnoticed, but unfortunately one of the workers who was rearranging the sets at that time spotted me. "Can I help you? I don't recall seeing you here before," he questioned. "No, I'm new here. I was invited and came to give it a try," I replied, lying in the hopes that he would believe me. The worker seemed unconcerned about local security and wished me luck before returning to his duties. I continued on my way, determined to find my wife's trailer. I didn't have to search for long. From a distance, I spotted her engaged in a discussion with a short, bald man. Judging by their conversation, it was likely the director. However, I decided to continue my covert observation and hid behind the nearest corner, eavesdropping on their conversation. They were arguing about certain aspects of the script. Clara expressed her reluctance to participate in explicit scenes, citing her marital status and the potential misunderstanding from her husband. The director persisted, assuring her that nothing embarrassing would be shown, and eventually she agreed and hurried off to her dressing room. A whirlwind of emotions began to stir within me. Had she truly agreed to this? I could no longer tolerate her involvement in this line of work and felt the need to confront her about leaving. But before I could act, something unexpected occurred. Out of nowhere, a tall, tanned brunette with a bare torso appeared. He approached Clara and pressed her against the door of the dressing room. Whispering into her ear, she did not resist. In fact, she seemed to enjoy it. I was utterly shocked by what I witnessed. Could it really be true? My Clara? It seemed impossible. Anger consumed me, and I impulsively intervened. I forcefully pushed the young man away and glared at my wife with rage. "Is this what your role entails? Here?" I exclaimed. "Oh no, Maxwell, what are you doing here?" she stammered, clearly frightened by my unexpected presence. "Did you bring me lunch?" I sarcastically shouted. "Tell me, what are you doing here? Hey man, hush hush." The man inquired about my identity, but I remained silent and delivered a blow to his face. He fell to the ground. Clara screamed and launched an attack on me, accusing me of mistrust and misinterpretation. It seemed as if they had rehearsed the whole scenario. However, I dismissed her claims. The three of us engaged in a heated argument. Despite his tough appearance, the man tried to maintain a safe distance from me to avoid another hit. A crowd gathered upon hearing the commotion. The director arrived as well, instructing us to cease our actions and provide an explanation. Clara seized the opportunity to voice her opinion. Eventually, the director succeeded in calming us down and clarified that the scene was indeed part of the script, ensuring that my wife would not be subjected to any embarrassment. I felt a twinge of guilt towards Clara and offered an apology, after which I escorted her home. Nevertheless, a lingering suspicion gnawed at me. I resolved to investigate further, even if it meant making a fool of myself. I devised a more cunning plan this time. I enlisted the services of a detective who posed as an employee and infiltrated the set. After a few days, the detective presented me with an envelope containing incriminating photos of Clara kissing the same man off-set. It was not a rehearsal, that much was clear. I muttered to myself in disbelief and expressed gratitude to the detective, urging him to continue surveillance. Meanwhile, thoughts of retribution for the deceit and betrayal consumed me. The following evening, the detective contacted me with an urgent address to visit. I heeded his advice, setting aside all other matters and hastening to the designated location. It was a quiet alley with a few abandoned houses and some inhabited by reclusive elderly residents. The house I had been searching for was situated in a cul-de-sac, and as the sun began to set, I had to navigate my way carefully. Upon reaching the destination, I noticed a faint glow emanating from one of the windows on the second floor. Although the curtains obstructed my view, it was evident that there was someone present, and they were not alone. Taking a deep breath, I cautiously entered through the unlocked door. The hallway was dimly lit, making it difficult to see. I contemplated using my flashlight, but before I could retrieve it, a sudden and forceful blow struck the back of my head, plunging me into darkness. When I regained consciousness, I found myself seated on a chair, my hands bound tightly behind my back. The impact had left my vision slightly blurred. After blinking a few times, my sight gradually returned to normal, allowing me to discern the figure of the detective I had hired sitting across from me. "You're finally awake," he muttered, his gaze fixed upon me. Confusion washed over me as I struggled to comprehend the situation. "What's happening? Why am I tied up?" I questioned, genuinely perplexed. The detective leaned forward, his intention to enlighten me apparent. "I brought you here to clarify something. Remember that man you believed to be your wife's lover and assaulted?" he inquired. As the throbbing in my head subsided, my curiosity began to outweigh the pain. "Yes, I remember," I replied cautiously, eager to understand the purpose of this unexpected encounter. The detective rose from his seat and approached me, his expression stern. "Well, that man is my brother," he revealed, his voice laced with a mixture of emotions. "And this," he continued, delivering a powerful blow to my jaw, "is for striking him." The pieces of the puzzle were slowly falling into place. Emerging from the shadows in the far corner, the man illuminated by a solitary light bulb hanging from the ceiling revealed his battered face. A wry grin escaped my lips, even amidst the pain. "So, that's where the truth lies," I remarked, acknowledging the irony of the situation. Before I could utter another word, another blow landed on my jaw, intensifying the ache. The detective proceeded to explain the extent of my misjudgment, emphasizing his unwavering love for his brother and the lengths he would go to protect him. Meanwhile, I discreetly searched for a way to free myself from the restraints. A sudden movement on my part caught the detective off guard, causing both of us to end up on the floor. Despite his strength and experience, I refused to give in and was determined to defeat them both. The detective soon realized that my physical abilities surpassed his own and decided to change his approach. Swiftly, he drew his pistol from its holster. Instantly recognizing his intentions, I exerted all my strength to intercept the gun. In that moment, time seemed to stand still as our hands clashed. We both held onto the gun tightly, fueled by our determination. Meanwhile, the detective's brother, who was standing nearby, watched the entire scene with a horrified expression. He tightly clenched his hands together and covered his mouth to prevent any cries or sounds from escaping. At that moment, he appeared more fragile than a healthy young man. I realized that he was nothing more than a weakling, relying solely on his good looks and physique. Amidst the chaotic struggle with the detective, every muscle in my body tensed. A few seconds later, a gunshot echoed through the air. The world seemed to freeze around us. Even the spiders in the corners seemed to halt their weaving. The detective's brother cried out, his voice resembling that of a frightened girl. After a grueling battle, I managed to stand up. The detective's lifeless body lay on the floor, a bullet wound in his side. The old floorboards were stained red with his blood. I glanced at the wounded man who was barely clinging to life. Though I knew I should call the police and an ambulance, anger consumed me entirely. I aimed my gun at the trembling young man, overwhelmed by everything that had transpired. He began to squeal like a pig. "Are you sleeping with my wife?" I asked him, posing the decisive question. He hesitated, fear evident in his eyes, before slowly nodding his head. I don't recall pulling the trigger, perhaps due to the overwhelming surge of emotions. It was only when I saw his lifeless body fall to the floor that I realized I had exacted revenge upon my wife's lover. I heard the detective moan, still conscious and attempting to convey something about his brother's execution. However, the blood surging to his throat only allowed him to utter unintelligible words. Without hesitation, I turned towards him, approached him, placed the firearm in his grasp, pressed it against his temple, and pulled the trigger. I arrived home late, finding Clara already asleep. Swiftly, I entered the bathroom and proceeded to shower, removing my blood-stained garments. Subsequently, I entered the bedroom and discovered my wife awake, her gaze questioning me. "I got into a fight," I stated, realizing that she had noticed the bruises on my face. "But how? Where? What happened, my dear?" she inquired. It was then that I erupted. "Darling, am I attractive to you?" I rushed towards her. "Answer me, you wretched woman. I am aware of your relationship with your actor companion. I employed a detective. You shall not escape the consequences now." Retrieving an envelope from my bedside table, I presented her with a photograph. "Tell me, how long did you plan on making me appear foolish?" "Maxwell," I uttered. "I apologize. It was an impulsive mistake. I intended to end things with him. I wanted to inform you, but I was unsure how. I understand your jealousy. I love you," she pleaded. I swung my arm towards her, but halted myself. "You are nothing but a despicable woman. Now gather your belongings and leave," I commanded. Clara did not dare to argue with me. Soon she distanced herself from me. I heard the news on television. The bodies discovered in that abandoned house were reported as a result of an internal altercation that ended tragically. However, I was not willing to let Clara escape without consequences. I hired an individual to handle the situation discreetly. Anonymously, this person disseminated information that tarnished the reputation of the aspiring actress, labeling her as a promiscuous woman of low value. This revelation had a detrimental impact on her current and future career prospects. She struggled to secure any respectable employment for an extended period of time. Thanks for listening to One Infidelity Hit. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop us a like.